Hello, excellent people. This is your Daily Excellence for April 15th, 2021, and today we're going to talk about responsibility. Specifically, we're going to talk about responsibility for the world. So, I got inspired to this topic because I recently heard a person talking about leaving the world a better place than we found it. And I like that sentiment, but I think it's missing something. I think it's not sufficiently deep. And specifically, I want to make the argument that we did not find the world, it was given to us. Okay, so I believe that the world was given to us by those who came before us, and it was given to us in trust so that we can then give it to those who come after us. This is a very core component of the notion of stewardship, which is a really important concept to me personally. So you'll hear me talk about stewardship a lot. And this is kind of a foundational notion. So let's go ahead and lay some foundation today and we'll see where it goes. But I want to specifically draw attention to what I mean by the world being given to us. Okay, so you've got the people who have come before you, whether it's your parents, whether it's your grandparents, whether it's the people who founded cities, right? So here's an interesting thing. I was in Nashville in September of last year, and I was looking at the Nashville waterfront. This is Nashville, Tennessee. The Nashville waterfront has like some old fort stuff on it, and there's a lot of talk about like the people who built the city. And that's one of those that falls right into this category. You've got people who are building cities, you got people who are founding countries, you got people who are developing legal systems by which the country is going to be run. And even on a more like even lower level, you got culture. You have culture that persists frankly longer. It exists on the even below the layer of society in the city, and it persists longer, but it doesn't change as rapidly, right? I'm thinking about in a basic sense, there's a cultural continuity of English speaking white European descendants, okay? Then there's another cultural continuity of English speakers in a broad sense, which is going to be much bigger than people who look like me. There's so many ways of looking at those who came before us, but those who came before us they lived their lives, they worked to build the world that they were living in to be the best world they knew. And we received that world from them. They never owned it. They were always keeping it in trust, but they were actively working on it in their own way, according to their own vision. And we received that world as a gift from the previous generations, and it's our responsibility to hand that gift off to the next generation. And I think it's very, very smart and very, very good in a moral sense to give this gift in a better state than we found it. So, crap, see, here's the funny thing is, I'm making this whole argument about how I don't think that's a strong enough statement, and then I use it in my argument. So I want to work on language that is consistent with this argument that I'm making, and I haven't yet refined it. But in the simplest sense, or in the sort of basic sense, without really working on the details, it's we were given the world in trust, and it's our responsibility to give the world in a better state than it was given to us to the next generation, right? That's kind of cumbersome. I'll work on it. So I want to talk a little bit about the responsibility inherent in a gift. Or actually, let's talk about two things. Well, we can talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the other aspects. So the responsibility inherent in the gift is the kind of thing that you can think about when you think of a 16-year-old getting their first car. There is a gift that is given, and this 16-year-old gets this gift, pardon me. And implicit in that gift is the expectation that the 16-year-old is going to maintain and take good care of that vehicle, in part because it's only right that they do so, in part because it's a honoring of their parents for having done that. It's an honoring of the car itself and the value that that car brings to that person's life. There's a lot of layers to this, but sadly, many 16-year-olds are given a car and are not implored to maintain it. I can tell you that I personally fell a little flat, not completely, but it wasn't, a 10 out of 10. I was given a vehicle. It wasn't really my own, but it was a vehicle that I was given to use, and I was very reluctant to maintain it. Like, I didn't want to wash it. I didn't want to do this and that. Like, I wanted to be paid to wash the vehicle that belonged to my parents that I used. I wanted to be paid like an allowance. It's like, well, pay me $10 for it or whatever. And maybe you can make an argument that was me being a savvy negotiator from a young age. But in this case, it showed a lack of responsibility, a lack of reverence, a lack of honoring of the gift that was the vehicle. And I think we can take this same thing and apply it to the world, and we can use this same frame of reference and think of all the gradations of people who, take significant responsibility, down to people who take no responsibility, down to people who actively attempt to damage the world. I mean, I think those people are hopefully in a minority. I don't really know a lot of people who are like actively antagonistic to life, but they exist apparently. So moving on from that slightly dark alley that we're not going to go into today, although we will go there, I promise you that. I'm very interested in dark alleys, and so I think there's a lot to be learned there, but today it's not. We're going to stay with the light stuff. So I was talking about the world being a gift. Well, I want to talk about also how the gift has a relational capacity to it. So the gift says something about the relationship we have with the people who are giving the gift. The gift says, there's a story to be told in the people who came before and the people giving the gift to us. And I don't have any good examples off the top of my head. This is actually technically the second time I've filmed this because the first time my phone failed on me and I had something really good and I've forgotten it since. So we'll for now, we'll leave it at that. We'll just say that there's something to be unpacked there about the gift and the relationship between the giver and the gift, the giftee, the gifter and the giftee, right? I've got some notes here. Let me dig into that. Oh yeah, okay. So let me make a quick case as to why I think that the first statement, while it is catchy, is insufficient. So the statement being leaving the world better than you found it versus treating the world as a gift and a gift that you're keeping in trust. And so I think that the first statement is insufficient because it does not implore you to take up that mantle of responsibility. It does not implore you to take ownership of your part of the world, whatever that part may be as far as your sphere of influence goes. It doesn't encourage you to have any skin in the game. If you found something, you could just as easily unfind it. Versus if you're given something, there's a more strong emotional attachment to it. And you're disinhibited to leave it by the wayside, right? And then there's an agency component. So there's an agency component here in you have a gift that you're given but it's yours in trust, and you have an agency in how you manage it in that sort of more stewardship kind of sense, or how you interact with in a more relational sense, how you interact with it. You have agency because it was a gift. Whereas if you found it, well, yeah, finders keepers, but at the same time, if you found it, it was never yours. It was never intended for you. And you could just as easily walk on by it and not pick it up. So your agency is more limited, I believe. You have to do more emotionally to generate agency. Let's put it that way. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. This is all intended to be some food for thought. Right? Like I said, I'm looking at how do we frame our reference with our relationship with the world. And I think that we start by seeing the world as a gift that was given to us in trust to then give to the next generation. Take this, use it as you aim at excellence. See you tomorrow.